the Farm RPG podcast. I am your host, Bhelogan. In this episode, we start off with a conversation about the vault with coderanger and a strategy for solving that. Following that up, Milkbark and I sat down for a long discussion about the evolution of the firestream game experience, starting with Halo charts all the way through Farm RPG. And we wrap things up with an interview that Auggie did in person with Annie8145. Enjoy. This is another Mechanics Deep Dive. I am your host, Bhelogan, and with me is coderanger.
Hello, everybody.
In this segment, we wanted to tackle a topic that is probably a little bit difficult without seeing the images, just doing it through text or through speech. But we wanted to talk about the vault and specifically going over a strategy of how to solve the vault and then address some common problems that we run into or mistakes that people make when they have problems solving the vault. So let's start off with a strategy for solving the vault.
Yeah, so I will insert the obligatory plug here for the excellent Bhelogan video on the vault. You can find it in the video tutorials page in the library. But for those who haven't seen that video, it's a Wordle based game similar to Mastermind. If you've ever played that board game before, there's a 4-digit code. You have to guess it. For each guess, you get information about which numbers are the correct number in the correct place, the correct, like a number that is in the solution in the wrong place, or numbers that aren't part of the solution. And those correspond to colors. Correct in the correct place is blue. Number that is part of the solution but in the wrong place is yellow, and number that isn't part of the solution is gray. And you have to, if you guess the combination before you run out of guesses, you get some silver based on your farming level, up to 40 million at max level.
And luckily, if you run out of guesses, you can purchase more.
You can. 50, I think it's 50 AC for more guesses.
Right, exactly. Now, I have to ask, have you had any vaults that you haven't been able to solve yet?
None that I haven't solved. There are 2. So I have the +1 guess perk from Farm Supply. So I get 5 guesses per vault by default. There have been 2 that I needed 6 guesses for out of, I think, about 50 that we've had so far. I've been doing it once a day. So however many days it's been. Yeah, out of 53 vaults.
Nice. So this may shock you, but I actually missed one. I'm at, I think, 76 out of 77. And I have no idea when I missed it. I think what must have happened is I started to solve it, didn't finish it, got busy, and then forgot that I didn't do it. So we just ended up timing out for the day.
I missed one day of the daily chores a couple days ago for exactly that reason. I did half of them, and then I just forgot to go back and claim the other half.
At least with those, you can still get your monthly rewards.
Yeah. But yeah, so you can do almost all of them within 5 guesses if you play very carefully.
So what is the systematic way to go about solving the vault?
All right, so I always start every morning with 1, 2, 3, 4. So I know some people like certain other numbers. 0, 1, 2, 3 is popular. So the reason I start with 1, 2, 3, 4, the code is a little bit unbalanced. It's from 0, 0, 0, 1 to all 9s, which means that 4 zeros, in theory, are impossible. That means that 0 is very slightly less likely to be in the pattern. It's an incredibly slight thing. It's also possible that the description could just be sort of, a little bit off and that all zeros is possible. I haven't seen it personally, but it would be very rare. So I like to start with 1, 2, 3, 4 or something else that's 4 numbers that doesn't include 0, just because I guess 0 towards the end. So you start with that. If you get all 4 of those as yellows and blues, then you sort of skip the next step. But usually you're not going to get all 4 of them. That'd be very rare. So next step, guess the next 4. So for me, that's 5, 6, 7, 8. So now you should know of those 8. So you have 8 out of 10 digits. You know which ones are included. At this point, there's a couple of options. So if you know 4 digits, like maybe not where they go, but you know the 4 discrete digits, then you can sort of move directly on to figuring out what order they're in. If you've had some blues, leave those where they are, start scrambling the order of the yellows until you figure it out. Usually you're not going to have all 4 completely locked down after the second guess, though. You might have a couple of the digits, but not all of them. So After that point, then you got to sort of get strategic. So you've got hopefully at least one blue by that point, maybe not, but something. You've got almost certainly at least one yellow by then. You can use those spots to guess 9 and 0 if you don't know if those are part of the pattern or not. So again, if you have all 4 discrete digits locked down, then you don't need to deal with 9 and 0. You know they're not included because there can only be 4 separate digits. But if there's any that haven't matched, you either need to have a 9 or a 0, or you've got some duplicates. After that, so that's usually guess 3, is figuring out the last of which digits are included. Then you've got guess 4, and if you have the perk, you also have guess 5. And those, you're going for areas of high constraint. So you want to look for columns that have a lot of information in them. So like mine today for guess 1, I got gray, yellow, gray. For guess 2, I got gray, yellow. For guess 3, I got yellow, yellow, blue. So column 3 in there had 2 yellows and a gray. By the time I'm done with guess 3, so that's sort of an area of high constraint. I don't know exactly what's going to be there. Just sort of naively, there's no blues, but I can see that as an area of high constraint, and then if I look through all of my data, I can figure out which number goes there. Not always. Sometimes you do have to guess, but look for ones that have more yellow or blue in their column by that point, or I guess more yellow. If there's a blue in the column, you know what it is. But look for things with more yellow in the column and try to figure out, okay, it can't be any of these yellows. Which could it be? You do have to be a little bit careful. If there are duplicates, then a yellow could still be an option. I think that's all of my sort of main strategy points. Shotgunned out all at once.
Yeah, all at once. There we go. Now, there's one kind of niche scenario I've run into recently where I found a trick where you can reduce your guesses, and that is when you know what 3 of the numbers are, but you're not sure which one is repeating. And I think the temptation is to use all 3 numbers, but do one of them twice and hope you can figure out if that's one that repeats or not. But there's a better way to do it, actually. If you omit one of the numbers and just do 2 of them, say if you know 2, 7, and 5 are in your combination, and you have a pretty good idea of where those numbers are or they aren't, omit one of them and then do, for example, just 2, 2, 5, 5.
Yep.
And usually with that, by looking at which one is grayed out when you have one that's in the correct spot, you can figure out which one is duplicated. Or if they both have it grayed out, then you know it's the number you didn't use that's duplicated. And so you can cut out a guess that way.
Yep. And like with Wordle, you sort of want to, there's a transition point. Sort of early on, you're going broad. You want to guess to get information. So like when you guess that 2255, you know that's not the answer. Like you already had some other information. You know that's not going to be it, but you're going broad, just gathering information. And then sort of you switch gears when you feel like you have enough information, you start going for the actual solution. And it's important to balance between those. You know, you want to flip either on your 4th or your 5th guess, usually, unless you think it's going to take more.
And sometimes it does come down to just a little bit of luck.
Yeah. It's, like I said, 2 of them have come down to 50-50 guesses on guess 5, and I guessed wrong and I needed a 6th.
Yep, that can happen. So when we see screenshots on Discord and Reddit where users are struggling to find a solution, what's the most common problem or mistake that you've seen them make?
The biggest one, I think, is mostly sort of treating blues as locked in. You know, if you have a blue, you don't need to guess the same number in that spot. So Wordle in particular has a hard mode. I think I haven't actually played the hard mode on Wordle, but you know, Wordle hard mode does actually require that. The Vault doesn't. Just because you know what's in a spot doesn't mean you can't use that space for other guessing. That would be in the first phase I mentioned, the sort of information gathering. You can use those spaces to get more data about what belongs where. And then when you flip over to trying to actually guess the combination, then you go back to using what you know is actually present in that space. So that's one. Another surprisingly large one is people just getting the blue and the yellow mixed up. It does say it at the top of the page if you ever need a reference. So if you're like, this seems like it should be impossible, the color, like I guessed all yellows, why didn't it match? That would be why. Unfortunately, all yellows, while an interesting accomplishment, does not get you the prize.
Yep. And I think another common mistake is when users have their first guess and they find something that's yellow, they immediately want to start trying to figure out where that goes in their second guess. And so I always preach the priority is to figure out which numbers are in your sequence before you even start to care where they go.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, that's going to be the main ones, but there are a few other gotchas that seem to crop up from time to time. And one of them is just fat fingering things. For example, for your first guess, you put in 1334 instead of 1234 and never realize it.
Yep. Yeah, I think I remember that specific Reddit post that you're thinking of. It's, it happens sometimes if you're just not looking carefully, especially on a little phone screen. It can be harder to see.
Another common one for me is when I get a yellow number early on to forget that it was yellow and then try to solve the solution without it, just completely forgetting that that was one of the numbers I'm supposed to use.
Yeah, there's also some common gotchas. The coloring for repeated numbers can get a little bit complicated. Sometimes a repeated number that is in the wrong place will show as gray, and sometimes it won't. I'm not sure we know the exact details of when that happens, so just sort of be a little bit cautious around those.
Yep, and then the last one is the mistake that I made, where you just start it and forget to finish it. So don't do that.
But there's always tomorrow. There's no like streaks or anything for the vault. So if you miss a day, don't worry about it. You'll try again tomorrow.
Yeah, I love that. There's a saying in Czech that goes "Zítra je taky den," which means tomorrow's also a day. We use that around home a lot. All right, I think that wraps up our discussion on the vault. As always, thank you so much, Code Ranger, for coming and talking to us.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, this is your host, Bhelogan, and I am joined once again by Milkbark today.
Good morning, everyone. How are you doing?
Certainly an early morning for me out on the West Coast as we tried to sync up our schedules this week. But
it wasn't easy, but I'm glad we were finally able to do it. I'm looking forward to it.
So when we had done your staff spotlight, you'd mentioned you'd been a player of firestream games for quite a while and had beta tested quite a few of them. And for me, I think the first game was Destiny RPG that I had played. And you go back even earlier than that, I think.
Yeah, it's been quite a while. He actually looked in his I had a Facebook memory. It's like 12 years, insert Firestream's name. And it's like, wow, that's a long time. But I think the first time that I had encountered, it was Halo charts. That was kind of my first foray into one of his projects. And it would have been late 2007, early 2008 for me. I would have been a teenager accessing the internet from math class from algebra when they passed out the laptops and I wasn't paying attention. So I don't know, do the math on that one. Far too long ago. Was that 15 years?
Somewhere in that range, yeah.
And so that was kind of my first introduction. That was honestly, I didn't have great internet access. I didn't have great computer access except at school. And Halo charts was actually one of the first real online interactions I'd ever had with other people that I didn't know. That was, I had a MySpace page with like 40 friends. Facebook was kind of just getting started, wasn't there on Facebook yet. And so it was just online forums, and Halo charts was the one for me.
So maybe you mentioned it. Where did you originally find Halo charts? Was it an ad somewhere, something on Reddit, or?
Nope. So Halo was very big. I was a huge fan of Halo. Growing up, I had Halo Combat Evolved as soon as it released and beat it on Legendary, and then the same for Halo 2. And then when I bought an Xbox 360 just so I could play Halo 3.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously other games came along after that, but that was really my game. And I was like, I'm pretty good at this. I didn't have fast internet at my house, so I would actually go over to my brother's house 4 days a week almost, and I would play Halo 3 until 2:00 in the morning and then get up at 5 and go to school. And I was like, I'm pretty good. I wonder how good I am. I wonder how I rank up. And Bungie.net didn't quite have the leaderboards I was looking for. So I kind of just Googled, who's the best Halo 3 player? And I got Halo charts was one of the first ones that came up. And I plugged in my info, and it's like, you're number 34,568 out of so. And it's like, hey, not bad. Top 30%. Look at me go. And shortly after, looking at the leaderboards, I was like, hey, they have forums. Hey, the forums have a chat box. Hey, there's real people here. I could talk about Halo with other people. I can't talk about Halo with other people in school. Nobody cares. And it was all over for me at that point.
So Halo Charts then was primarily like a site for leaderboards for Halo, where you could also chat with people from what I'm gathering.
You got it. Yeah, it was primarily a leaderboard site where, they tracked everything. They tracked how many sticky grenade kills you had, what percentage per game of splatters with the Prowler you had. And it was all over the place. And it was Halo 3 specific. But it was the forums that really drew me in. You can only look at stats for so long, but then I was like, hey, there's a whole community of people here. There's, chat with them about life, chat with them about Halo, whatever you had. And that was kind of the core thing that held it all together. And of course, shortly after that, since Halo was brand new, Halo Charts was sort of brand new, and it really brought about, I was able to watch it grow and evolve, because Firestream back then, same Firestream he is now. He's always changing, always looking for the next thing, always trying to improve and make things better. And so soon, profile awards came up, and groups came up. You could join different groups, and then there were group nights, obviously playing Halo customs most of the time. And we really got this little community going. And I guess it had to have been 2008. Couldn't have been 2007. I'd been using the system for a few months. And then, I just happened to mention something about Roll Tide, and Firestream popped in chat, and he's like, Roll Tide. and I'm not sure how it happened, but it come to find out, I'm like, hey, we root for the same team. And, over time we sort of developed an online friendship that, turned into a real life friendship. We went to a football game together. I've sold him football tickets when he came down to the Auburn game that we lost in 2013 that we won't speak of. But it, and I've just, kind of been there, rooting him on for all of his stuff going forward. And so one of the things that I was really interested to talk about today was just watching the evolution of each of those projects. Halo Charts, eventually he shut that down. I think it was in 2011, 2012, somewhere in there. And one of the fun things to watch is that at the core of all of these little things, even going back to before Halo Charts, there was the Firestream Music Vault, which was kind of this heavy metal forum and chat, very important, and chat for talking about these songs. And that chat was in Halo Charts, and then that chat was in Halo Sphere, that chat. And so it was community and communication and finding people that you share a common, I don't know if passion's the right word, but a common interest that you share a common interest for. Being able to talk to those people about the topic you're discussing was just, it was refreshing. And there was always a good community because there was always good moderators. I'm not saying that I'm a good moderator, but there are good moderators that keep some of that, some of the negative stuff that you associate with online chat rooms. There's always going to be people that are trying to rock the boat or, kind of upset people. They get a rush out of upsetting people, or maybe they just, are a little more direct and, but what have you. And it was always there to keep it peaceful, keep it civil, keep it moving along, that everyone's going to have a good time. And I thought that was very interesting to watch. All of these started out with that chat in mind, that community in mind. And we see that today in Farm RPG. And, it's kind of the center of the game. I don't think we would have nearly as many players, not even close, maybe not even half, if there wasn't a chat, to keep the community engaged and speaking with each other.
Yeah, without that, I suspect the player base would be significantly less than half, probably.
For sure. I mean, it's fun. It's enjoyable. Sure. It's enjoyable. It's enjoyable to do, by yourself, but it's so much more so. It's more than the sum of its parts.
So one thing I think is pretty cool, Firestream has kind of an archive. It's at his website, magicandwires.com/archive, where you can go through every year, and he's got screenshots of his different projects. And for those of us that used to play the Firestream History Mystery game in the past, this was a common source where we'd all go to and start when people ask questions, what year did this come out? What year did that come out? We'd all go in there and start trying to find screenshots of things and information.
Yeah, it was a fun place. And funny enough, I mean, that website used to be called firestream.net. I don't know when he changed it, but I know for a while I was like, oh man, he shut his website down. And for like 2 years, I just thought it was gone. He's like, no, I just moved it. I was like, oh, I had no idea. But yeah, he's, so I don't have it pulled up now. I'm just trying to remember. I think the next project after Halo Charts was Halo Sphere. And that was kind of his first, I don't know, I'm sure he's had games that he's made, but that was his first, online global. I mean, I don't know if you can call it an MMO. It was massively multiplayer online game, technically. But everybody playing Halo Sphere. And it was a game where, it completely incremental, not really any idle portions. It was all incremental. You could wait on some stamina to refill, stuff like that. But there was always some way to replenish it without spending any money or anything like that. You just wait a little bit. And it was a game where you just attacked the other players. That's all you did all day long. You attacked other players in a text-based form with some additional buffs that you could do beforehand. And there was a chat. So you would chat with the people that you could be attacking. Be like, hey, sorry about that. Or, what have you. That was a lot of fun. And, eventually that led into Halo Sphere 2 and so on and so forth. But there were always leaderboards in those. And that's something that I found very interesting. And I wanted to touch on this too. Halo Charts, it was all about leaderboards. Halo Sphere, a lot about leaderboards. Everyone wanted to be the best. Halo Sphere 2, Galaxy Warfare, Titan Conquest. Throughout all of those, it was all about leaderboards. And something that we had noticed, especially Firestream, is that where there are leaderboards, there are leaderboard cheaters. Period. I mean, people are going to cheat anyway. But when there's stakes involved, so much more so. And it was always a big deal when people high on the leaderboard suddenly weren't there anymore. And it's because they got leaderboard banned. They did something shady they shouldn't have been doing. And it got old. It wasn't a daily occurrence. It was an hourly occurrence that people were cheating to rise higher in the leaderboards. And that is the number one reason there's no leaderboards in Farm RPG. There's some unofficial ones that people keep track of on spreadsheets and just raking people's profiles to see what's going on. But, there's no official leaderboards. There's no like huge official competitions. Of course, everyone's going to try to be competitive, but I think no leaderboards has limited that, and it's limited the amount of cheating, and thankfully has limited just the amount of people who no longer allowed to play the game because they cheated in the first place.
Yeah, the cheating thing's a big deal, and I do a fair amount of work on the back end still for Titan Conquest for cheat detection and things, and that's never a fun conversation to have with somebody. It's like, hey, we caught you doing this. And, everybody's response is, no, I didn't. And you're like, data doesn't lie. You absolutely did. Like, no, I was playing. I'm like, you mean to tell me you clicked the exact same speed for 9 hours straight without taking a break? No, you
didn't. and what's interesting about those is that in Titan Conquest, or even, Farm RPG or whatever, a lot of people get, you can get a chat ban, get a chat ban for an hour, for a week, for a day. But most of the time, if there were leaderboards involved, if you were leaderboard banned, that was permanent. There was no coming back and apologizing. I distinctly remember there was one prominent username. I remember his username very well because he was when I Googled who's the best Halo player, he was the name that came up. I won't mention it here. I don't want to stir the pot or anything, but he was leaderboard banned. the person that brought me to Halo charts because for being the number one player, he ended up being leaderboard banned probably 2-3 years after I joined. I mean, it was a big deal. And you can't come back. The only thing you can do is start a new profile and not cheat, and start from the bottom. And somehow that same user within a year and a half had made it back in the top 20 with a new profile. He's a machine, but it only causes problems. It causes strife. And so we just, that was part of it. When Firestream was telling me about the game, he told me about 2 weeks before, I was able to make a profile. He was like, I'm not going to do leaderboards. I'm going to leave them out. And I was like, that is a wonderful idea.
And that was a major, major evolution from what we'd seen in the past, for sure.
Huge. I mean, there'd been leaderboards forever, for 15 years, 14 years. And that was actually one of the most discouraging things for me. That's why I didn't play. I played Galaxy Warfare for probably 3 months, 4 months, somewhere around that time frame. And I eventually gave up because the people at the top of the food chain on Galaxy Warfare, there was no catching up to them. It was not going to happen. You were simply where you fell on the totem pole within your first little bit of playing is where you were going to be forever. And that's kind of how it felt on Titan Conquest. If you were not one of those people that could sink massive loads of time in, you were not going to find yourself anywhere on those leaderboards. And it became discouraging. You compare yourself to other players. You're like, well, why am I even playing this game if I'm not making it anywhere? There's no way. And so that kind of discouraged me from Titan Conquest as well. Or, kind of before it was Titan Conquest, when it was still Destiny RPG. If anyone still remembers that was a fun change from DRPG to Titan Conquest.
The leaderboards tend to give a perception of winning because in all of these games, there's not like a final boss that you beat or something. The game's over. They're perpetual, much like a Dungeons and Dragons campaign or something like that. And that you hit a point where your progress slows down, but you can keep playing.
Sure, yeah. There's no reason to quit.
So without there being a winning state per se, that kind of plays into something else that's been common with Firestream games is that he's always made an effort to never have ads for as long as I've known the games, maybe before DRPG.
Yep.
And he's always tried to make sure that it was never pay to win.
100%. So even, I remember with Halo charts, there were no ads, but there were like 3 places where you might expect an ad to be. There would be just this tiny little donate button, and it would have the picture of a Visa, Master, whatever, PayPal, and just a tiny little donate button. There'd be one at the bottom right, maybe on the home page. And that was it. You could donate or you didn't have to. You could make it recurring or one time. And, if you did, you would get a star on your page, on your profile page. You could have little medallions and that was it. There was no pushing, there wasn't a whole lot of chat. There weren't, there were forums back then. There was no forum posts about donating and moving on through any of the others. There was always that little donate button that was never really that prominent. And it was purely donate. There were no really any kickbacks besides that star on your page, and you get a shiny star in the chat as well. And that's kind of the same true for Farm RPG. I mean, you do get some kickbacks for donating in Farm RPG. You get additional gold or additional benefits. The monthly starter pack has some additional stuff, but I would not consider it pay to win. There's no winning. And in fact, there's a ton of people in the chat that take a pride. They're like, I've never donated. I've never supported this game, is kind of what they're saying. But I've never donated. And look how high I've made it.
Yeah, we see that. We had one particular staff member in Titan Conquest who was our free-to-play member, and he was one of the top players in the game. He was able to make it all the way to the end game and be towards the top of all the leaderboards and top of many of them without having donated. And in his case, it was a teenager, right? So we're no hard feelings there with him saying, hey, you aren't helping support this game you're playing. Say, hey, you're a kid. We don't expect you to. But it's nice when there is a way for us to, show appreciation for the work that Firestream puts in. And he's got a couple ways to do that in Farm RPG. One of them is through purchasing gold.
Yep.
You can do, but he also has the Patreon set up for Farm RPG.
And so I've been a long time on again, off again supporter of whatever he's doing. Halo charts, I was a monthly subscriber for a while, Halo Sphere, and I would come and go. And eventually he's like, I really wish that people I knew in real life would not donate. And I was like, well, technically you didn't know me in real life to begin with, but, but still, I love to support it, and it's not any of the kickbacks. It's like I just want to see more. I want to see what this game can flourish into, and I know there's going to be more once development for Farm RPG kind of peaks off. Who knows? A year from now, 2 years from now, once it kind of gets to its quote unquote finalized state, I know that there's something else that's likely going to be right around the corner, and I'll probably donate to that one too.
Right. So based off what we've seen from Firestream games, the user interface seems to have a lot of common elements in it as well. You've got your menus on the left, your chat box on the right, and kind of everything you're doing in the game in the middle.
Yeah, and again, that really came into, they were always similar. Like Halo Sphere looked like Halo Charts, Halo Sphere 2 looked like Halo Sphere, Galaxy Warfare looked like Halo Sphere 2. But each one, the UI got tweaked a little more and a little more, just to try to find that sweet spot with, what's the easiest way to navigate. And each time, with each iteration, you're like, hey, this looks familiar, but it's different. It's for this game. And especially once we start getting into Titan Conquest, once you start getting into Farm RPG, kind of these later, more recent ones, they're incredibly mobile friendly. Take Halo Sphere. If you had mobile, it was a little clunky on mobile. Galaxy Warfare, nigh impossible to play on mobile, just due to the what kind of game it was. But then you start getting into Titan Conquest, Farm RPG. Mobile is the only way I play. I've clicked maybe 15 times on a laptop or desktop, but mobile is how I play, and it's easy to get into, and my preferred way to play it. And the way each iterations kind of got the UI into more manageable scale, it's kind of helpful for that. It played right into making these games more mobile friendly.
I'd argue we almost punished desktop users with the fishing minigame.
I won't get into. I'm one of the few people. I don't hate fishing. I enjoy sitting there and doing it on my phone. From if I'm playing a video game and I'm at a loading screen, I'm like, oh, okay, I'll just catch 5-10 fish, get back to my game. Nothing wrong with that. And I'll say this too. Moving to mobile has been another reason that I've stuck with Farm RPG for so long. Normally I would get bored. I got to be, and everyone knows it. I got burned out of Galaxy Warfare. I got burned out of Titan Conquest, and a lot of that had to do with I would only play at a desktop. I didn't, I was one of the stubborn people. I refused to get a smartphone until my later years, and so I wasn't able to just access it at all times. And so now with this, wake up in the morning, do my daily chores, and then I can kind of put on an idle crop and go do some work and come back at another point in the day. And that makes it accessible and easy to work with.
I love the mobile aspect too with Farm RPG, and that you don't have to sit down and play for a long time to get things done throughout the day. For me, it's top of the hour, pull out my phone and craft a couple things, sell them off, and I'm done. And my wife's always like, was that so important you had to pull your phone out? I'm like, yeah.
Yes, it was. I was voiding straw. I mean, I don't know what else to tell you. And what's kind of a minor point, but I did think about touching on this, is that, Farm RPG kind of spawned from an idea in Halo Sphere 2 of territories. So Halo Sphere 2 and then into Galaxy Warfare, you got this idea of territories where you'd buy this plot of land. It was just a grid. I think it started out as a 4x4. Then you can increase it to a 3x3. 2x2. So it started as a 2x2. You can increase it to a 3x3, spend more and more silver. And you could put these things on it, like something that generated, silver every 15 minutes, or something that generated a certain kind of sphere. Spheres are very important in Halo Sphere and Galaxy Warfare, every 20 minutes or every hour. But one of the unfortunate things with that is that they would spoil. if you didn't collect them in time, they would go bad. You would have to scrap them and start over. And when he told me he's doing Farm RPG, I was like, do me one favor. I was like, this sounds like a great game. Do me one favor. Make it so they don't spoil. I was like, if somebody plants something and they're not able to get to it till the next day, let them still be there. And he's like, I think I'm going to do just that. That was my one contribution. He was probably going to do it anyway, but in my head, I'm like, man, if those spoil timers, that would have been awful. But
we'll give you credit for that one, and we all appreciate it.
I also mentioned fishing nets at one point. I was like, hey, what if you did nets just like Lemonade? And he's like, it's already in the works. I'm like, man, I thought that was a good idea.
Don't you love it when you invent something too late, right?
Yeah, invented it too late. That was back in May when there was only May of last year. Wow, we're already almost a year into this game. Back when manual fishing was the only fishing. But yeah, it's very interesting to see, looking back at the scope, watching every little change, every idea, something that works here, may not work in the next iteration, but we might try it. Or I say we like I have a hand in any of this stuff, but it's really interesting to just see the evolution. And at the core of everything has always been the community, and I think that's always going to be there. I think anything that Magic and Wires does is going to have that community at its heart. And if that's always going to be the case, then I think I'm going to follow it, as long as he keeps making new things.
All right. That's awesome. Hey, I think that's probably a good place to wrap up this conversation. Kind of an evolution of the Firestream games and where we've come from leaderboard charts from Halo all the way to Farm RPG.
Big fan. Thanks so much, Bhelogan. I really enjoyed it.
Welcome to another Player Spotlight on the Farm RPG podcast. Today with me, I have a very special guest, and her username is Annie8145. Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning.
All right. And something fun, I'm actually sitting at her dining room table with her today. I brought my whole setup over. All right, well, we'll just kick it off and start with the first question, which is, how did you learn about Farm RPG and how long have you been playing?
My grandson told me about it, and I looked it up, and I've been playing since August of 2021.
Neat. Your grandson also still plays, I assume?
Yes, he does. And almost daily, we discuss what the quests are that we're working on and our frustrations and achievements. And it's been fun that and I'm glad he shared it with me because now it's something that we share.
I love that.
Yeah, I love it too.
And didn't you guys just buy each other like a beta membership?
Yes.
As a gift?
Well, he bought one for me, and he's told me to hold off as he started a new job, that he just doesn't have the time right now. And he said when things settle down a bit. So, yes, that will.
It's coming.
Yeah, we're going to pull it off.
All right. So, if you had one sentence, how would you describe Farm RPG? You want to come back to it?
Well, no, I'll take a stab at it. It's just hard to confine it to one sentence.
It can be a run-on.
Okay. For me, it's turned out to be a very compelling game because I can play it on various levels of attention and time, and I like that. And there are very few things with a time pressure in the game, and I like that.
Yeah.
Period.
Period. Throw it into Grammarly and see if we get any
right.
flags.
I don't think we can diagram that sentence.
That's okay. It's not graded.
Okay.
So where did your Farm RPG username come from?
My grandson gave me the name of Ani when he first started talking, and we're not sure why he came up with that, but he did. So that's what stuck. As is often the case with firstborn grandchildren, they pick a name for a grandparent. And 8145 was my childhood address for a number of years. So when he said, you've got to pick something,
Something.
And he said, you could be clever. And I thought, no, I'm not going to be clever. I'll just pick something I can remember.
Well, I like it because I know when I'm referring to you, I refer to you as Granny Annie because it's easy because I always jumble the numbers in my head. Even introducing you, I was like, ooh, did I get it right? And then I got the little nod and I was like, yes.
Well, it seems to have worked.
Yes. Everybody knows who you are, at least the people I talk to. So besides Farm RPG, do you play any games?
No, I don't.
What, do you have any hobbies that you do in your free time aside from when you're playing?
I like to work in the yard. I am in a book club, doing things with and for my grandchildren is a great delight, craft items. I mean, it was school projects when they were in school, and now it's my granddaughter's in college, and they're the things she needs for her sorority. So that keeps me intermittently busy enough.
Oh, where they make the little,
yeah.
I had a friend who they had they made little paddles because they were near the ocean at their school and
exactly
cool things.
Those kinds of things.
Yes. Well, that sounds very fun. I know you do a lot of crafts. I know from personal experience.
Christian and I had such fun doing this shirt.
Yes. For those of you who don't know, I am the sole owner of not one, but 2 Farm RPG shirts made by Annie herself. And I'm wearing one of them right now.
She's wearing it well.
Well, thank you.
It was made with a lot of care and fun, deciding what to put on it and where to put it.
And I love it. I wear it all the time. All right. So for the next question, it is, what is one thing that you wish that the Farm RPG community knew?
Well, that's a tough question because I see the farm community as a wonderfully diverse group of people. And when you find out little snippets about them, they are playing it on all different kinds of levels and with different approaches. And maybe everybody sees that and appreciates that. So I guess that's what I would just like to acknowledge, is that it is a diverse group of people playing it a lot of different ways. And
from all over the world, too.
Yes. And I just think that's fascinating. The statistical nerds who get into these, what I think of as rather obscure, my gosh, to the 4th decimal point, trying to compute drop rates of this and then the yield of that. And my eyes just get kind of glassy when I'm reading that. But
Me too. Mine too.
But I'm glad they're doing it because obviously they enjoy that, and I just sort of blindly go through it and, it drops when it drops and,
Yeah. I just click until I get what I need.
Exactly.
But the people that do that are generally are very good.
I do have a notebook, though, and Christian makes fun of me with my farm notebook. And he said, well, what pages have you had to add? And then time or two, he's asked me questions. And I said, see, if you had a notebook.
Then you'd know.
And you don't, and I do. So
you have a whole notebook dedicated?
Yes. Well, it was for another. Yes, I took over a previous notebook, and now it's been commandeered.
So what kind of stuff is in your notebook?
Do you want to see it?
I do.
It's right here.
Hold on, Bhelogan.
No, we all want to know what's in Annie's notebook.
And it wasn't meant for other eyes, but it's okay. For example, here we have the seed growth chart. And these are the stated times to maturity or whatever the word is. And with the perks that I have, these are the actual growth times. So when I'm getting sleepy at night and I'm thinking I can squeeze in one more crop before I go to bed, and I have to decide
how am I going
to be awake? Am I going to be awake in 1 hour and 36 minutes, or am I going to be awake in 2 hours and 24 minutes? I know. Before I grow wheat overnight, because I'm going to grow wheat overnight, but I'm not ready to commit to wheat for the rest of the month. So that, and these are my current inventory figures, because when I noticed some things were, the words turned to orange, so I knew they were going to come up in a future quest. So then I made a list of those and went through to check, because something's coming and I'm probably going to need a lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
So I need to start getting those numbers up. But
getting ready.
I didn't know that it was going to be 700. And then we have pages of what was in the treasure chests.
Oh, wow.
Because I had been known to open chests that exceeded my inventory.
Mm.
And the thought of all those silver drifting off into oblivion. And then there were the Christmas quests, and I didn't know whether that would come up again in the event period. And
your bank
minimum bank balance.
Is that your pets and what?
My pets. And then the latest quest, of course, made me go. And then my grandson and I had this long discussion, and I was asking him, because, I have this quandary with the unpolished jade, and that's at level 1 on the pet rock. I've got the silver to upgrade the pet rock, but I don't want to dilute the number of unpolished jade I'm getting right now. So I inched it up to level 2, but I don't think I want to go to 3 yet, because I don't want the rock.
Yeah, you only want to bring that stuff.
So there are all those considerations. And what was in the storehouse, but that's not a good list anymore. And this is the good old days of when I was worried about runestones.
Oh, yes.
And I look back fondly on those days.
Oh, my goodness.
The other day, I said to my grandson, I said, do you remember when we were so excited to get our first raptor? And he said, that was a long time ago, wasn't it? Yeah.
It was a long time ago.
But that history and, I ranked the craft items that I was able to make at the time, because, I wanted to make the ones that made the most money. And then as I moved up and other craft items were available. So, and now with the ability to take things in and out of the workshop, I love that, so that I can take things out that I'm in danger of making by accident.
Like jade.
Like using precious resources. I've been selling jade by the boatload.
Well, I think
everybody has. It makes me feel better when I read Global, and I wasn't making jade charms. I was just, selling the polished jade daily. But
well, it looks like Miss Annie has her own little private farm RPG library right in her own home. That's very cool. It's very handwritten and organized, and
the current quests, because I've been known to lose track of which things I should not be using or selling, so I have to,
There's a way you can track a quest. I can show you that if you want. So, on my screen, that's the one I'm working on. And those are the things I need.
I can do that when I'm on my laptop. It crowds my phone screen.
Gotcha. Right. Well, that was a whole lot of tell us what you want the community to know. But I think we can sum it up in we have a very diverse community of people who enjoy doing different things around the game. And some people like spreadsheets. Some people like to figure out min-maxing. Some people like to just organize their thoughts. Some people just like to watch the numbers go up. I'm one of those. And we got to learn a little bit about Annie's personal farm RPG library. So for our final question, what is an interesting fact about you?
Sometimes I wonder if I'm one of the older players, because I'm about to turn 79. And so it's just curious.
I feel like you probably are, in that age group of our older players, but I think that that's really cool. Because I know we also have players that are 18, 17, and like, everywhere in between as well.
Right.
I think that we should have a 79th birthday party for you in the game.
I just think it's really cool that there is such a variety of people who
play this game,
who like the game.
You can really just play however you want.
Exactly.
On your own time. Whether you work a lot or you don't work at all, or, go to school or...
And this morning, my conversation with my grandson about the farm game was, as I see people in the chat room say, well, if this was changed, then it would be easier. And if this was changed, this would be easier. I just wonder if a lot of the grind was eliminated, whether there would be as much joy as, it's right now, it's a nice balance of, when things are too easy, then they aren't a challenge and they aren't as much fun.
Yeah. And then,
and I wonder if Firestream, he seems to have a very good grasp of maintaining that balance, making this easier, but then something else pops up that's very challenging.
Yeah. So because I know back, I don't know, if before Christmas, the mailbox updates where you can now send a maximum inventory or a maximum mailbox capacity in one click. The workshop in itself just has had unbelievable improvements. Because the auto crafter took forever and you otherwise had to craft one by one. And so trying to make one fishing net meant that you had to craft, what was it? You had to craft 6 twine, to craft 2 rope, to craft 1 net.
Right.
And now you can just craft all of your things, each item is just 1 click.
Right.
And, apple ciders and
large nets.
By the time that this episode is released, they will likely be out of beta. But yeah, no, and he mentioned that he's putting something else in alpha that will further enhance exploring, which I'm excited for. I don't know too much about it yet, but by the time this episode is released, we will probably know more.
Right.
But no, it's very, very cool.
It's fun how people hang for updates, and somebody will say, we've gone so many days without an update,
Well, Firestream was on vacation.
I know. That was well noted.
Yes, it was well deserved.
He's gone. What are we going to do?
Yeah, but we survived. Nothing crazy happened.
No.
He deserves a chance to sleep and hang out with his family.
Absolutely.
Is there anything else that you wanted to add or note or talk about in the podcast?
Don't think of anything.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you in the game, I'm sure.
All right.